Hey, happy October once again, guys and girls. We return with a special list. This is becoming a tradition for the spooky season. So this year we've decided to do a TV list, and it's going to be Halloween themed TV episodes. So we've each come up with a top 10 list, and I'm sure we'll do some honorable mentions as well. But yeah, Halloween themed TV is such a feature of the Halloween season. Episode of TV which has a link to Halloween, whether it's through the plot or whether it's just because it takes place on that night, then it really counts for this list. An easy or hard list to come up with?
Oh, this was actually quite an easy list for me. I love a good Halloween episode. And so I love whenever shows lead into the Halloween theme. So there were probably about half a dozen on this list that I instantly knew would be on the list. And the others I had to kind of look around, just remember, certain Halloween episodes. Which ones do I think embody the theme a little bit more? I will have a few honorable mentions because there were a few that didn't quite make the cut. But for me, this was a fairly easy list to do because I just love Halloween so much that I love these types of episodes. So it was already kind of in my brain when I sat down to make the list. But I know that you maybe had a little bit of did you have a bit of a difficult time with this?
I did. It was a struggle for me, and over the last couple of days, 2 or 3 days, I've been watching episodes of TV that count. Some I've never seen before, some I have, but I wanted a rewatch to think about, is it good enough to make the list, and different things. So no, it was tough, and for a long time I didn't really know what my number one was going to be, and that's unusual for me because normally with these lists I have a clear idea of what the number one will be, and then it's just a case of what else is going to be on the list in certain order. But I'm glad we're doing this year because it has inspired me to watch more like Halloween style episodes of TV.
Oh, good. What my number one would be, because I do actually have a favorite Halloween episode, but I watch every Halloween from a certain show. So yeah, it's interesting that you struggled with your number one. My number one was just straight off the bat. It actually comes from a show that you wouldn't think does Halloween episodes because that's just not the type of show it is. So my number 10 is the season 10 episode Thriller from Grey's Anatomy. So Grey's Anatomy is a medical show, obviously, a soap opera medical show, but they do actually do Halloween episodes. And Thriller, obviously named after the Michael Jackson song, is a fantastic episode where they basically lean into the Halloween, like, spooky season. And everything that's in the hospital is portrayed in kind of like a horror movie kind of way, but it will always have a logical explanation. So, for example, a guy comes in who's gotten into a fight with someone who he thinks is a zombie because he knocked the guy out, could see that he was still breathing, but couldn't find a heartbeat. So that comes in a very kind of like eerie manner. And the guy is obviously dressed up in a zombie outfit. And they're like, why does he not have a heartbeat? And then it turns out that he has a very rare condition where his heart is actually on the other side of his body. I think they have a patient with like necrotizing fasciitis, so flesh-eating bacteria. There's also a little girl who has a heart condition where if she gets startled too much, she can literally die. So she can literally be scared to death. So of course they have a whole sequence where we see the little girl wandering through the hospital and it's all decorated. And of course she comes across some scary figures and, she faints. So it's just a really fun episode because I just really love how much they lean into the horror. So, anytime there's blood that splurts up somewhere or one of the residents, comes across a case, they'll do a horror chord, or they'll have some spooky music. And it's a fun setting, because you think a hospital is a scary place anyway. And a hospital on Halloween, when, people do tend to get drunk and people do tend to do stupid stuff and they do tend to end up in situations that are kind of unexplainable. So this episode just really kind of encompasses that while still maintaining the reality of the show. Everything we see does have a medical explanation, does have a logical explanation, but it's just kind of couched and, cushioned in that Halloween theme. So I really enjoyed this. Like, I only saw this episode recently because within the last couple of years, I've only recently finished Grey's Anatomy because it's a 17 season long show, but I really love that episode. So that is my number 10, Thriller from Grey's Anatomy.
Number 10, and I know you'll approve of this choice. My number 10 comes from Charmed, and it's all Hallowell's Eve.
Very nice. Very
So
nice. So
my
you love
number 10.
Charmed.
Yeah. And this is a nice, concept of an episode where the witch is a local coven from the 1600 transports the witches back to that era, the sisters, and that is so they can save a young witch and her daughter that she's pregnant with. So the idea is that the forces of evil are trying to cut off the Hallowell, line.
The line,
which is before, and change history, so to speak. And that's always one of the fun things about like time travel style episodes is you can sort of play with it and play with what it means to the characters in the present setting. And it's just a good hook for an episode. And the bad guys, the forces of evil are trying to do it this way so they can change history. It's a big episode for the Cole character as well. It's sort of one of the big first early episodes for him where it establishes his threat. Because things get convoluted with his character later on.
they do.
Really convoluted. But at his best, he was a good character, and he was a menacing character.
Yes.
And there's some fun stuff. I also like how it's important when you think of the theme of Halloween because it brings up the tradition of Halloween in the episode. And there's some quite funny jokes with that about how, you'll be surprised how things have changed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's one of those where Halloween is important to the episode because of the tradition, and Phoebe literally gets up on a broomstick and acts like your stereotypical witch to distract them. And that's just one of those funny meta type jokes where it's like, she influenced history, and that's why we've got all those stereotypes now. And there's some fun stuff with her in the episode where she's kind of making jokes about how she's being all empowering and yet she's got like a slutty sort of costume on.
She's wearing a Mistress of the Dark costume.
That's it. Yeah.
And they tease her about it. She's like, this happens to be a protest statement. And then Bruce is like, I am so impressed that you can make a protest and show cleavage at the same time.
It's very good. So it's a good hook of an episode, a good theme for the episode, some good character stuff. And season 3 is obviously when the show is still in its sort of peak form.
Season 3 is a great season.
Later on. I also like some of the Leo and Daryl stuff in the episode as well.
Yes,
because it's when Daryl finds out who Leo is, sort of thing, and that he's not him. And I like the way that comes about. Actually, I like when he comments on Daryl's uniform.
Yeah, it's like from my rookie days.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, I like yours as well," and he's like, "Yeah, it's from my past as well." And that's
and
when
Daryl's like, "Isn't that from World War II?"
Yeah,
and they're just like,
yeah. So that's good, and I enjoy the scenes with them in the episode back in the house, dodging those Fester Adam looking demons who are quite freaky, but good episode. I enjoy it quite a bit, and
very nice.
They use the Halloween theme and the holiday very well.
You'll approve of this one. I was like, is he going with Charmed? I feel like we're going with Charmed here. So yeah, that's a great episode, and I definitely approve that choice. Very good way to kick off your list. So coming in at my number 9 is a newer episode, or rather it's from a newer show. It's from a show that actually only came out this year, but I really love the episode so much that I put it on this list. And the episode is from the new Pretty Little Liars Original Sin. So it only has 1 season at the moment. So it's from that season, and it's called The Night He Came Home. So obviously that right there is supposed to be a Halloween reference. So in this episode, the girls decide to throw a Halloween party as a fundraiser so that one of the girls can keep her house. It's a long story, but basically we get this great house party, and while the house party is going in, the bad guy is kind of hunkering under the stairs, being like a creepy Michael Myers, Boo Radley type figure down there. The party is fantastic. We get some great costumes. So one of the girls is actually pregnant, so she dresses as Rosemary Woodhouse, which I thought was a fantastic little
nice.
shout out and a great thing. We have another girl who dresses up as Poison Ivy. We have another one who dresses up as Morticia Addams. So we get a really good fun sense of like the costumes and the fun of the night. We get to see the party. But the episode also has some really good reveals because it's about halfway through the season. So we actually get to see at the end, we get a really good kill from A. We get a really intense like murder scene right at the end. We get some reveals about the girls and their past, and we get a little bit more insight into who they are. And we also get a little bit of a mystery with one of the girls. Recently, her twin sister died, and one of the main characters is convinced that the twins switched places. So we have a little bit of a mystery as well. So this episode, I think, more encompasses like the fun of Halloween. So we get to see, you know, the decorations, we get to see the partying, we get to see the costumes. I always love when TV shows get their characters to dress in really fun costumes, and we get to see what kind of, and I think it also shows, you know, the characters' inner personalities, and we get to see what they're like and what they might be into. And like I said, because this is a Halloween episode, we've definitely got a bit of creepiness going on. The new Pretty Little Liars leans more into horror than the old one did. So we definitely get a bit of like a 70s, 80s slasher vibe from it. And it's just a really fun, colorful, like really enjoyable episode that moves the storyline along, gives us another murder, gives us some more intrigue, some more mystery, and sets up pretty much the trajectory for the rest of the season, all while having it in this fun, bright kind of Halloween setting where we get to, you know, really enjoy the night with the characters. So that's my number 9, The Night He Came Home from Pretty Little Liars.
9, and I was saying to you off camera then, I made a discovery today in watching this for the first time, and I never realised then Star Trek, the original series, has a Halloween style episode, so that was quite a discovery. It's one I saw pop up on the list, and I thought, I've got to watch that now. How can I not watch and it's close enough, like it's not quite Halloween, but it's sort of close enough with some of the imagery and ideas. So the episode is called Cat's Paw, so that's provoked quite a classic Halloween sort of theme straight away. And it's classic 60s campy Trek, really. So what sort of happens is like one of the crew like beams back up aboard. He sort of dies on the spot, and he's come from this mysterious sort of planet. So they beam down Kirk, McCoy, and Spock to investigate. And it turns out that this planet is overrun with like witches, goblins, and other sort of like demonic type creatures. Definitely. And there's even like a classic gothic sort of castle on the planet, which all the main action takes place in. And there's a black cat, of course, who has like supernatural type powers. Halloween in the plot, like the idea of trick or treating, and there's some fun gags, like because there's a gag about how Spock hasn't heard about Halloween or trick or treating because of his like culture, and there's some good banter with him and Spock, because like obviously when Spock questions what it is, Kirk says, I'll explain another time, but you would be good at it, basically is his line. And then there's another fun like exchange between them when they're confronted by witches when they first land on the planet, and once again it's like 60s effects, so it looks very sort of cheesy, but you've got these witches appearing in like fog to them, and they're sort of like chanting something or other, and the line after they disappear is Kirk's like thoughts to Spock, and Spock's like, very bad poetry. So there's some great humor like that, and they definitely bring up, you know, Halloween and its traditions, and the three of them end up being like chained up in like a sort of like a basement style thing, or like a cellar in this castle, which is just glorious. But you get some like dramatic, spooky style music. You get
Yeah.
lots of like imagery and over the top campy moments. And the big final scene is it ends up with a giant cat basically like pursuing them like a giant, and it looks so silly, but it's just so entertaining and so campy, and there's some good character stuff. But yeah, it's an episode I had no idea even existed, so it's one I had to check out when I heard, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So that's Star Trek Cat's Paw, which is from season 2 of the original series.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Like I'm obviously I'm not a Star Trek fan, but that sounds like a really fun episode. And like I said, a planet full of witches and ghouls with a gothic castle. Yeah, I'll go there, man. That sounds like a good time.
It's a good
black cats.
Yeah, it's a good way to incorporate what Star Trek does, but have a concept like Halloween style episode. So
yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. So my number 8 comes from a show that we both enjoy. So I have gone with the season 2 Stranger Things episode, Trick or Treat Freak. So this is the second episode of season 2, and obviously it is very much built around the Halloween holiday. We of course get the boys in their little Ghostbusters uniforms, so cute.
Adorable.
And of course their horrifying realization when they reach the school that they are the only ones in costume, which is great, which is a great moment.
Fantastic.
And I love the little taunt of who are you gonna call? The nerds. Really fun. And of course, this is the episode where they fully try to like integrate with Max, and they invite her trick-or-treating, and of course she pops up in the Michael Myers mask, which had a great call back in season 4. Excellent little shout out, and it's nice to see Max. This is kind of the beginning of her friendship with the boys, and it's a nice night to do it, a Halloween night where everyone's kind of out and in good spirits. We of course get some beautiful characterization and storyline with Elle and Hopper, because obviously the series has established that Elle is staying with him. We get that great little moment where he turns around and she's just standing there in the ghost sheet, and he's like, oh god, and she's just like, ghost, Halloween. And of course, you see her desire to want to go out, and Hop, decides to do the compromise, halfway happy, I'll be home by this time, I'll get you a bunch of candy and we'll come home and watch bad movies together. Unfortunately, you see that he ends up breaking his promise, and that obviously sets up the cracks in his and Elle's relationship further on. We get Bob. We get beautiful Bob, who I love in his hilarious Dracula outfits and his hope it doesn't suck and just everything about Bob. And I actually discovered through a parallel gift set someone had made on Tumblr. I don't know if this was a deliberate shout out, but Joyce, aka Winona Ryder, dancing with Dracula. We've seen her do that before in the Coppola version, so I don't know if that was a deliberate shout out, but it's fun. And of course we have Bob being beautiful, being gorgeous, and he's just wonderful. And then of course we have Steve and Nancy and their relationship coming to a head in this episode. We see them dress up as Rebecca De Mornay and Tom Cruise from Risky Business, which is a nice little shout out to the first season, and that. And of course, Nancy at this point is very upset about Bob, and she's in her own head, and she's still got her trauma. So we have that fight in the bathroom, the bullshit fight, which is so hard to watch, because poor Steve is, he has no idea where this has come from, and poor Nancy is so drunk and upset over, everything to do with Bob, and it's a really hard scene to watch. I find it so hard to watch that scene, but of course it does set up a trajectory of the rest of the season. So I think this episode, not only being a fun Halloween episode and we get to see all the boys in their garbs and we get to see everyone dressed up, it sets up a lot of the rest of the season, because right at the end, Will ends up in the Upside Down and he ends up seeing the Mind Flayer, and that obviously sets up his trajectory. And I think right at the end of the episode is when Dustin finds Dart. And that's a great little way to end the episode. So I just think everything about this episode, it's a great Halloween themed episode. We get a lot of fun with that theme. We get a lot of fun with the fact that it is Halloween, and they use the holiday to kind of further some of the relationships and to further some of the storylines. So I think it's just a really fun episode and a really great one. So that is why Trick or Treat Freak is my number 8 on the list. So there we have it.
Okay. I love it. It's Trick or Treat Free.
Nice.
So you pretty much said it all with that. What the hell?
Cat Attack.
Yeah, I've gone with the same one. So I agree with everything you said. They used the holiday really well. And it's sort of, because I think with most seasons of Stranger Things, it normally takes a couple of episodes to really set up the season plot. And so it's a big one in doing that, because it's also the one where they further the whole thing with the pumpkin patch and the strange stuff going on there. So that's another bit of Halloween imagery, which is important. Max confirms and she's going to be a great character by dressing up as Michael Myers and scaring the shit out of them. And just on a small note, it's nice that a female character gets to do that and actually gets to scare the boys, sort of thing. So that's really fun, and it's quite a big episode for Will. I'd forgotten about like Nancy and Steve at the party, so that's another quite big scene. And yeah, pretty much everything the episode does I like, and it's a really good hook at the end with Dustin and the thing in the trash can, because once again that's like horror related as well, so they sort of kept it horror related throughout the episode, and it just has the spirit of like the holiday, and it sums up what Stranger Things does really well, and the nostalgia of the show, where it's so good at referencing these sort of movies and having fun with the tropes, but also like sort of being a prestige to film. And once again, it's fitting because we've both said this, then the horror side of Stranger Things is one of the strong suits. So when it went to like full on horror in season 4, we thought this is appropriate, really. And so it made sense, and they would have a Halloween episode. I also loved the dialogue back and forth about who's going to be Winston, sort of thing, and this idea then Winston is like the sidekick more. He's like the third wheel almost. So I like the name make reference to that, but that's pretty cool. So
I gotta say, totally really relate to Lucas in that instance.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when I was younger, it was always like, oh, let's play with Spice Girls. And I always wanted to be Jerry. But given my coloring, they're always like, no, you have to be Mel B. And it's like, no, come on. So I am totally on Lucas's side. I get it, man. I feel ya.
You can see how that happens, yeah.
Yeah, have it on our list. But I think it's very cool that it was the same number on both of our lists.
That's so really good.
We obviously have similar feelings about that. Very cool. All right, so my number 7, you definitely won't have on your list. I know this because you haven't watched this series. But my number 7 is the season 2 episode Masquerade from the Vampire Diaries.
Okay.
So this is an episode that, so it definitely is Halloween, but it doesn't feel it as much. It was one of those episodes that as I was looking through Halloween episodes, I was like, oh, is this listed as a Halloween Oh, it actually is. So basically it's Halloween night in the town, which the name I've completely, Mystic Falls. And if anyone's watched our top 10 TV villain episodes, I've talked about Catherine Pierce, who is one of the main villains in the Vampire Diaries, and she is the main villain in season 2. And this is the episode where they decide to actually confront her and try and take her down. And they do so at the Halloween Masquerade Ball. So, of course, we have the fun of seeing everyone dressed up in masquerade gear with the masks and the decorations. And I think that they're using Bonnie the Witch to kind of draw on the power of Halloween. And we get this fantastic showdown between Catherine and the two main vampires, Damon and Stefan. And basically there's a whole lot of like little tricks and like things that are going on. She's basically linked herself to Elena. So anything that happens to Catherine will happen to Elena. And it's this great scene where they realize they can't stake her, they can't hit her, they can't do anything to her. because she's linked. And so it's just this really fun episode of them trying to outsmart Catherine and Catherine trying to outsmart them. There's also another big piece of storyline where one of the characters in the Vampire Diaries universe, werewolves exist. Werewolves are born and then they trigger their wolf nature by committing murder. And so one of the characters in this episode does end up triggering his werewolf curse. So we get the start of that. And then towards the end of the episode, they do actually manage to, at least for now, defeat Catherine. And so we get this great kind of payoff of the characters actually defeating her and figuring out like where it's going to go next. But again, this one's not as Halloween-y as the others, but it's definitely still set on Halloween, and they do reference the storyline and the holiday. And because it's just such a fun episode, and like I said, we do get a little bit of like the Masquerade ball and the decorations, and we get to see how this particular town celebrates Halloween. We get some good witchy stuff. We've got a couple of one of the main characters discovers another witch that belongs to like the same bloodline as her. So we do get some fun mystical things. I mean, the Vampire Diaries in general is a very magic-based show, much more than I had expected it to be. So episodes like this where you get to kind of amp up the magic and amp up the mysticism of the show are really fun. So that's why it came in at number 7. Even though it's not quite as Halloween-y as the other ones on my list, it's just a really good episode and a really fun one, and a lot of things come to head. So that's why it's coming at number 7 for me.
7, I've gone for the Goosebumps episode, The Haunted Mask.
The Haunted Mask?
Yes.
Nice. It has to be that one, doesn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. It feels like a staple of Halloween. It has like all the feels, all the trappings. And from what I know, because I'm not that familiar with Goosebumps or with, obviously, I've not read the books, but I think fans talk about this as being one of the best versions of like a story.
It absolutely is. And the book itself it follows the book very closely because I loved Goosebumps as a kid. So yeah, I can agree with that.
And this episode is free on YouTube, by the way, so it's easy to watch. So that's really cool. And it just tells a very like simple, basic story, but it has all the sort of ideas of a good family orientated horror where there's a moral, there's themes, and there's just a nice little character growth and development. So the main girl is sort of a girl who gets scared very easily. She's very timid. She's like picked on at school, the sort of school bullies with their pranks, and she wants to turn things around. That's the sort of idea of the episode or of the story, is that for once she wants to be the one with the power, the one to like turn the table. So she actually wants to get into the spirit of Halloween for a change. So she looks for this mask in a store. She buys it off a creepy looking guy, and it turns out it has supernatural powers, and things go wrong. It's a very creepy looking mask. The guy she buys it off is very sinister and creepy, but again, it's playing on that trope of maybe he's actually innocent, because it sort of turns out that really for her own good he's trying to stop her from buying the mask, and she like nicks off with it anyway and throws the money back to pay for it. Halloween has to confront that sort of thing, and it's this idea of her trying to get into the spirit of things, but then how she tries a little too hard, and that's when things start to. So it, like with all like sort of family kids orientated Halloween style stories, there's a moral to it, like practical effects on the mask and other things. There's a scene where like just like a pumpkin patch, they make pumpkins look quite spooky and sinister, which I really like. So some classic Halloween style imagery. The actress I think is pretty good, the lead actress, and there's some nice moments with her and her family. The mother who designs masks like has this design of like really. Oh, she's done a design of her daughter, hasn't she? Like as a mask. It's a really,
and it's a little creepy.
It is creepy, uncanny. And you can see how a teenage girl would be embarrassed by that, but at the same time, that's another thing that ends up being a little bit sort of creepy. But there's some nice effects, and it's a simple story that tells a nice sort of story and kind of has a theme, and like returns to the idea of family by the end, which I like, and you get the author like introducing it and then wrapping it off at the end, so it has that sort of tradition. But it's a fun one. It's a fun sort of lighter watch to watch around Halloween.
The episode used to really scare me when she can't get the mask off her face. And she's like, oh my God, this is my real face. And it's like, oh, okay, this is, because the thought of being stuck inside something is just, ugh. But that's a great choice. The Goosebumps series was so much fun back in the day. And I loved the books. So absolutely love that choice. Very cool. So my number 6 is, we're going back to the Pretty Little Liars universe, but this is the original show. So my number 6 is the season 3 episode, This Is a Dark Ride, from the original Pretty Little Liars. So Pretty Little Liars have several Halloween episodes. It was actually quite hard for me to choose one, but I chose this one because it is just so much fun. So in This Is a Dark Ride, the girls for Halloween night, they and all of their classmates, everything, they're going on a terror train. So, you know, it's those trains, you get on the train goes somewhere, you have entertainment. Of course, because it's Halloween, we get the full aesthetic of Halloween. So the train is all decked out. Everyone's wearing costumes. The girls have, the 4 main liars have spectacular, absolutely awesome costumes. We've got one dressed as Daisy Dukes from Daisy from The Great Gatsby. I always think Daisy Dukes because the Dukes of Hazzard, but no, Daisy from The Great Gatsby. We've got another one who goes as Marilyn Monroe. Another one goes as kind of like a very classic 40s noir kind of, you know, gangster villain. And then the third one goes as like a sci-fi monster. They also have a special guest music guest star on the train. Adam Lambert is singing like one of his songs, so that's actually really fun. I mean, you wouldn't believe it in real life. Adam Lambert would go to like some small little town and perform on the terror train.
Exactly.
But for the sake of, you know, disbelief, let's just say that. So you've got all of that. Plus the episode, as with a lot of Pretty Little Liars Halloween episode, gives us more about the main mystery. So we get to find out a little bit more about the night that Allison died. We get to find out a bit more about, you know, who's stalking the girls and what's going on. There are some really great tense scenes on the train, and especially because of the costumes. You have one person's in like a Phantom of the Opera costume that's really creepy. Another one's in like a Queen of Hearts costume with like the full face mask, and that's really creepy. And then towards the end of the episode, one of the girls, Aria, actually gets stuffed in a box with a dead body and is almost pushed off the train. So we have a really kind of exciting, tense climax where the girls are like desperately trying to get to Aria. They're being attacked as well. They don't know who's who. And again, they really play into the whole, it's Halloween and therefore everyone is in disguise and everyone's wearing a mask. So you literally don't know who is who and who you can trust and who you can turn to. So there's a lot of like excitement and a lot of dread and a lot of tension in this episode. And then right at the end, they discover that there's like this coffin, like a fake coffin, obviously, that's got like drinks in it, but someone knocks the coffin over and Allison's body, or at least in a body bag that has been missing since the beginning of the season, comes falling out of the coffin. So we get this great reveal of like someone has actually put the body in the coffin, and the episode ends on this really kind of like somber, like down note, like, oh my God, this is our friend's body literally right here. So the episode is just like a lot of fun, you know, very bright, very big, really leans into this is Halloween and you don't know who to trust and you don't know who's under which mask, and they just, you know, they have a lot of like really creepy scenes, and it's just a really, really fun episode. So that is my number 6. This Is a Dark Ride, from the original Pretty Little Liars season 3.
Okay, yeah, like the sound of that for an idea. Good stuff. Okay, so my number 6 is a supernatural episode, as in the show Supernatural, and it comes from season 4. It's The Great Pumpkin, Sam Winchester. And
nice.
Immediately I like it because of the title, because that's obviously referencing the Charlie Brown Halloween special. So gotta love a show that does that in the title. And I've not seen that much of Supernatural, but I did make a point of watching this one because someone recommended it, and from the little I've seen of the show, this really sums up what the show does when it's at its best. So it sort of mixes this episode anyway. It mixes Case of the Week with an ongoing sort of plot and arc, which I like. It sort of mixes the two very nicely, very smoothly. Other than these two murders are linked by a witch who is killing people to summon a demon. So you get a little bit of a murder mystery or a little bit of a whodunit style with this witch. Who is it exactly? And there's a nice little twist on that. But at the same time, we also, that sort of bleeds into the ongoing plot with Lucifer sort of thing, where they're advised, and yeah, there's going to be a consequence from pursuing this, or good, elements of Supernatural as a show. It's very sort of pulpy. It has that nice sort of whodunit feel to the episode. There's some good macabre and some good deadpan sort of humour as well. Some Dean at one point where he kind of says, if I was ever reincarnated, it would be as like a cheerleader sort of thing, because they figure out that it's this cheerleader who turns out to be and just the expression, the dead expression, than the other guy. What's the other character's name again? That's Sam. And there's just this really awkward pause, and it's just, and I think it does a good job, the show, of actually making what could be quite creepy lines like that actually really funny. The mythology of the show builds on, obviously, the whole plot with Lucifer, and like particularly the Sam character, what they're developing with him in the show, and it has a really good like atmosphere and fun like twists in the plot, and some great Halloween imagery, like, these youngsters at this party and they're playing like bobbing for apples, and that turns into something sinister. So
yeah, it does.
That's a really good scene. So very entertaining episode, and a lot of good stuff going on. So that's the Supernatural episode from season 4.
Well, I am a Supernatural fan, or at least the original oeuvre of Supernatural, which is seasons 1 to 5. That's the Kripke era. That's kind of the OG era.
So it's in that era.
And and it's in that era. So yeah, definitely agree. It's a great, strong episode and really has a lot of fun, and sets up a lot for the rest of the season. And if you've seen like the entirety of that arc, you know that it really is a pivotal season, like episode for Sam and for the Lucifer storyline. So it's a great choice, and like you said, it's a great name. It's a great pumpkin, Sam Winchester. It's it's a really nice play. It's great. So my number 5 is from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So this is the season 3 episode, Halloween 3, from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Now, I need to give a little bit of backstory to explain this episode. So, Keith, have you seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine? I can't remember.
No, I still haven't. No.
Okay, so in season 1, in the Halloween episode, the main character, Jake, bets the captain, and the captain is like kind of this straight-laced, very, by the rules, by the books kind of guy. So he bets the captain that he can steal the captain's Medal of Valor from his office. And then it turns into this whole convoluted thing where Jake is trying all these different ways to like get the captain out of his office and steal the medal. And, in the end, it turns out he did end up doing it. And so the next season, the captain challenges him again and then turns it on his head. So by season 3, it's become kind of a routine, the Halloween heist. And the captain and Jake are both like, okay, so this year we're both going to attempt to steal this crown, and we're each going to pick team members, and you guys can help us. So they each pick their team members, but they both leave off Amy, who is at this moment Jake's girlfriend, and she's also kind of a teacher's pet towards the captain. So neither the captain nor Jake trust her, because they're like, you'll just screw me over for the other one. So we have the usual hijinks of, the captain and Jake trying to outsmart each other and using disguises and different things and all of these fun hijinks to kind of get the crown. Then they discovered that the crown is missing. And it turns out that Amy, bless her little heart, was so pissed off at these two for overlooking her that she decided to cross all of them. And she actually stole the crown as an elaborate heist. And she wins the Halloween heist. And now every season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine actually has a Halloween heist. So this becomes kind of like a tradition, And every year there's a bit of a twist on who wins or who's got it or whatever. But the reason I love this one is because it was the first episode that had like a big twist at the end. You know, like the whole episode, you're wondering, is Jake going to get it? Is the captain going to get it? And then it turns out to be Amy. And she gives this great speech about how they both underestimated her because, you know, you just thought that I was Jake's girlfriend and you just thought that I was Holt's lackey, but I'm my own person. And I decided to humiliate all of you. And the way that she does it is just so brilliant and so funny. I mean, you just get to the end when she gets to wear the crown and she gets to be called the Queen of the 99. And it's just a really fun moment. And like I said, with these heists, every year the show kind of one-ups themselves and, you know, has more elaborate stunts and more elaborate ruses. And so like this one has like Jake stealing Holt's car and Holt having the car towed and Jake having to break into like an impound lot and Amy wearing some and so you always have all this craziness. And of course, because it's set against the backdrop of Halloween, they incorporate that. So they'll use masks and they'll use like there's this cackling witch that they use to distract each other. So, you know, all these little bits and pieces that you can do on Halloween. So Halloween 3 is my favorite off the heists. There are some fantastic ones later on, but that's what comes in at my number 5. Halloween 3 from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because it's just such a fun episode that just really takes the Halloween theme and shows the fun of the night as opposed to just the spookiness. You know, it shows the hijinks and stuff that you can get up to. So that's coming in at my number 5.
Yeah, that's a good shout. That's something sitcom episodes of Halloween.
Yes.
Does well, really.
Yes.
You know, it gets into the hijinks of it and just in a way, mates being mates or, you know, whatever, trying to upstage each other with costumes or with pranks. That's obviously a big part of Halloween. So, sort of links a little bit to my number 5. I'm actually changing the order around a bit, so I might.
Yeah, I saw you writing there.
Sitcom choice, and that is an episode of Frasier, which is just called Halloween. So this is from season 5, and it was a little bit of a toss-up because there's actually 3 Halloween themed episodes of Frasier over the 11 seasons, and so it was close actually because the other 2 I like quite a lot as well. There's a good one in a later season where like they go around to Frasier and the theme is that they have to dress up as like their heroes, and Roz dresses up as Wonder Woman, which is really funny. But they make it funny. They make it funny. But the one I've gone for Halloween sums up what Frasier as a show does really well, which is this really old school sort of farce and like miscommunication and all the different like funny like scenes that play out as a result of one character hearing a piece of information and misunderstanding it.
Yeah.
And in this case, because it's at a party, because it's at a Halloween party, you sort of see the ripple through the various characters at the party, and it just builds and builds to a crescendo till you get to the end. And the whole thing is that Roz has found out that she's pregnant and she's a little down about it with the guy, and it's a bit complicated. A little bit of confusion. So Frasier suggests she goes to Niles' Halloween party to like cheer herself up. Niles is dressed up as D'Artagnan, so that's his Halloween, which is really good. He's got like the fake sort of nose, so that's really funny. But yeah, it's sort of her pregnancy is what leads to all these misunderstandings because they're trying to keep it a secret. Like at the start, only her and Frasier knows, and this is one of the things that the show does really well, like just like slowly getting out to the other characters and the misunderstanding, and what it leads to is that it leads to Niles actually thinking that Daphne's the one who's pregnant, and through all this miscommunication, Niles actually thinks that not only is Daphne pregnant, but then Frasier got her pregnant, and that Frasier is like, you know, not taking responsibility, like leaving her. And there's just all these different like directions and miscommunications that leads him to this point. So And this is fun, particularly because of the long-running like plot with Niles having a crush on Daphne, and throughout the early seasons, he's like keeping that under wraps as much as he can. So it's a fun sort of play on that plot because he still hasn't like confessed to her his true feelings, and so then what happens is because Niles thinks that Frasier has got her pregnated and left her, you know, type thing. He proposes to Daphne in front of everyone at the party, and so that makes the embarrassment all the more when finally Roz reveals that she's the one who's pregnant type thing, and she has it confirmed. But it's a really fun episode, and you've obviously got a flavour to it as well with the different Halloween costumes and just all the fun interactions and like different things happening. So
yeah,
I would say all the Frasier Halloween episodes are good. There's another one like later in the show, like I think season 10 or something, and it's one of those where that just plays into the spirit of Halloween, where like Frasier's friends keep like pulling pranks on him, so like pretending that they've been killed or something, and that old school sort of Halloween style tradition, and the theme of the episode is Frasier trying to get them back, sort of thing, trying to come up with an elaborate way to get them back. So that's a good episode as well, really fun. So that's my number 5. Yeah, Frasier Halloween.
Very nice. I haven't watched Frasier, but I do know that it's a really good show. So that sounds like a really fun episode. So I'm continuing the sitcom theme with my number 4. So my number 4 is the season 3 episode "Too Old to Trick or Treat, Too Young to Die" from That 70s Show.
Okay.
So again, That 70s Show does have several Halloween episodes, but this one is my absolute favorite. There's not much of a storyline, but basically it's more that there are all these situations that the characters get into, because this episode is one big visual tribute to Alfred Hitchcock. It is fantastic. It's so funny. So we also we get some other nice shout outs. First of all, we start with the guys down in Eric's basement, and they're basically lamenting that they are too old to trick or treat, too young to die, because, you know, it's just boring. Fez walks in. Now, Fez, great character, in a Frankenfurter outfit. So we get to see Wilma Valderra in full Frankenfurter garb, which is great. He steals Eric's bouncy ball. Eric chases him up onto the roof, where we get our first Alfred Hitchcock reference when Eric falls off the roof, and we get a Vertigo reference. And they use that over and over. Fez also falls off the roof, which means he ends up with a broken ankle, which means he ends up in a wheelchair in Eric's bedroom, and Eric is teaching him how to use his binoculars to spy on Midge, Donna's mum, who's very hot, from across the way. Only Fez instead sees Midge's husband Bob dragging some suspicious-looking garbage bags around, so we get a whole rear window situation of Fez thinking that Bob has killed Midge and stuffed her in the garbage bag. So there's that. Meanwhile, Kitty, Eric's mum, has said that, yes, she will go and feed the neighbor's birds while the neighbor's away. The neighbor has crows. So Kitty has this whole nightmare simulation where, of course, she's doing the birds from Alfred Hitchcock. And it's actually really funny because she's in the living room of her friend's place in the dream, and she's like, oh, a telephone box. That's handy. And she just goes into the telephone box and, you know, has that. But one of my favorite visual references that they do, and they do it in quite a clever way, Kelso has to go to a party with his girlfriend, Laurie, who is just a horrible human being. And because it's a fancy party, he has to wear a suit. Now, earlier in the episode, he kind of pissed off the local newspaper boy, and the newspaper boy decides to get back at Kelso by flying his electric plane near him, and Kelso's in a suit. So we get a great North by Northwest reference, which is a very obscure really Hitchcock reference to have. There's also a Psycho reference. There's a couple of other references here and there. But yeah, the whole episode is just one visual ode to Alfred Hitchcock, and it's got some great scenes and some great fun. Obviously, it's That 70s Show, so you've got a whole lot of humor kind of woven in with, you know, situations and what's actually happening with Bob and Midge, and, you know, what's going on here, and Kelso pissing people off there. And so it's got all the staples of a great That 70s Show episode. But you add that kind of Alfred Hitchcock visual into it, and it's just a really, really fun episode. Really fun Halloween themed episode. And I just like how hard they went with the references and how you can tell that as they were making it, they were really enjoying seeing the situations they could put their characters into to get the different references. So that's my number 4, Too Old to Trick or Treat, Too Young to Die, from season 3 of That 70s Show.
Okay, that's a interesting choice, and sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds like they really embrace that. So, and it's fun when shows like that do that sort of thing, because it's sort of like, I've only seen the odd episode, but it in a way sounds like the sort of show where you wouldn't get that. So it's a nice fun thing.
Yeah. It
But
is.
do they, I guess maybe because it's 70 set, do they do a lot of like film type reference episodes, or is there a lot of,
They've got, so they'll have little shout outs, so, they have a lot of fantasy sequences in That 70s Show, which are really funny. So through the fantasy sequences, you usually get a lot of shout outs. So like they've done Charlie's Angels, the $1 Million Man, the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, things like that. But this is the first episode where it's like literally a whole episode full of these references. So it's kind of like they just turned the dial up and decided to do a whole episode rather than just the fantasy sequences. So yeah, it's really good. It's one of my favorite shows, and that's just a great episode.
Of Community. So it's an episode from season 2, and try and pronounce it right, but it's called Epitology at a Halloween party, and the whole thing is then the dean who's hosting the Halloween party, through some dodgy like meat that he's serving at the party, like everyone gets food poisoning and they turn into zombies. So it becomes a full-on horror style plot. And it's, I mean, for anyone that knows Community, it's very likes to reference films and pop culture, likes to have high concept episodes where they will actually pick apart the different tropes of the genre and just run with it. It's not just that they're making gags about that sort of genre. It will actually feel like a pastiche of that type genre. So there's like quite a famous example in season 1 where they do like an episode where they're playing paintball, and you've got a paintball contest, and they turn that into an action style, pastiche where you get all the tropes of like cheesy 80s action type movies. So it's a really clever sitcom in the sense that it actually does high concept episodes where it actually embraces that and actually turns it into that, rather than just making jokes about that. And there's sort of a level of detail to it which is just really charming and beautiful. So in this case, everything goes crazy and people turn into zombies, and Dean like picks the music for the party, and everything is from his playlist on like his iPod. And so what happens is every song that's plays at the party is ABBA, and I mean that's already funny, but what makes it even more funny is when you get the zombie outbreak and you've just got an ABBA song playing in the background. And it's really clever the way they match it to the actions of what's happening, and they just have a lot of fun with that sort of the dean and the banter at the party, because the dean is dressed up as Lady Gaga, and he's like this awesome. Really great costume. But it's like when Jeff is asking him about the meat, he actually uses the line, because he says it's like military meat or something, and he's like, don't try and read my poker face, and he's like, I don't need to. I saw the labels. I know what the meat is, and there's just lots of fun with the Dean's playlist. So at one point, like when all this is kicking off, it's like you hear the Dean's voice, and it's like, add the soundtrack to Eat, Pray, Love to my workout routine. So there's lots of fun stuff like that. There's lots of fun like costume items, like Annie, the Alison Brie character, is dressed up as Little Red Riding Hood, which is always a classic. So that's very cute. Her boyfriend, who's like this sort of hardcore environmentalist, he's dressed up as like a big banana. So people address him as like the banana guy, sort of. Big banana guy. So it's really funny. And it has lots of fun with like meta nerdy type things, because at one point, like, Troy's trying to get these girls, and the way he does it is like he's dressed up as like a robot, like from almost like an action sci-fi type movie. And Abed comes in his costume, and he's sort of like, just as part of the act, he's like tracing the girls, and like Troy fends him off, and so they're sort of in character as like these characters, and of course it doesn't work. And Jeff, who's a bit of like the lady sort of man, he comes over to him, and Troy's like, I don't get it, I don't get, how that doesn't work, and how and Jeff said, well, it might have something to do with the fact that I'm wearing like a $600 suit, and your outfit, you're just reminding them of their brothers going to Comic-Con, basically. But there's a fun sort of arc with that, with Troy and Abed throughout the episode, where Troy becomes the hero sort of thing and saves everyone. And in the end, because like Abed's like a super nerd, whereas Troy is like a jock sort of thing originally, but he's like close friends with Abed, and by the end of the episode, he learns to embrace like his nerd side and just run with it. And there's a line from Abed where Troy's has to like escape through an event to save people, and it's like, you can become the only black man to survive this thing, and it's just referencing that trope of the black characters always dying in movies. So there's a lot of fun, a lot of great references, and it's a very funny episode. But I also like that it does sort of turn it into an actual like zombie style plot as well, and has a lot of fun. So yeah, Community is such a joy of a show, especially when it's at its best, doing high concept stuff like that. So yeah, that's my number 4. Have you seen any Community?
No. I know of the show, but I've never watched it. But I've seen GIFs and stuff on Tumblr, so I do have a sense of like what the show is like, and I have a feeling like, yeah, it sounds like a Halloween episode. It's like right up their alley.
Right up their alley.
A lot with that, yeah.
Yeah, there's some great characters, some great like sending up of things, because Chevy Chase is in the show, so it sort of sends up, his sort of age and stuff, and maybe how he in real life he does have a little bit of an ego to him, and he dresses up as Captain Kirk, by the way, in the episode, which is perfect. So good stuff.
It is the season 2 episode of Buffy Halloween, because of course you have to have some Buffy on this list. Yes. So obviously Buffy has 3 Halloween episodes. There's this and Fear Itself and All the Way. I personally think this is the best of the 3, and it is the one that I enjoy the most. Obviously anyone who watches us are probably Buffy fans, but the basic premise is it's Halloween night and Buffy's having some issues with Angel, so she wants to dress as like this olden time woman from his past because she thinks that that's what he wants, and she's trying to convince Willow to dress as kind of like a sexy, fun girl, but Willow just throws on her ghost costume, and Xander decides to go as like an army guy. And of course the premise is this is the first time that we meet the wonderful Ethan Rayne, who has brought his shop to Sunnydale and decides to cause chaos because everyone turns into their costumes. So we get and obviously, when we first watched Buffy, this was really in the early years, and we were used to certain dynamics. So we were used to Buffy taking charge and Willow following and Xander not quite knowing what he was doing. And so of course in this episode, we flip everything on its head. So we get helpless Buffy who doesn't know what's going on, and we get Willow who's actually taking charge, and we have army guy Xander who is quite hot Again, it's all about the confidence. As soon as Xander gets a bit more confident, he gets quite tasty. And of course, we just have a lot of fun with this episode. There's some great characterization for Buffy, obviously struggling with, who she is as a Slayer and can she date normally. At the beginning of the episode, she kind of has a bit of a teen moment where she turns up and sees Angel laughing with Cordelia and has a bit of a breakdown about that. This is also an episode where I think this might be this is the second episode where we get to see Oz. And he gets a great exchange with Cordelia.
Yeah.
Wow, Cordelia, you're like a giant cat. That's my costume. So, I love that. And of course, this is the second time he sees Willow. At the end of the episode, we get another "Who is that girl?" moment that I absolutely love. And of course, Ethan is such a great character. And this is our first little hint at Ripper Giles, because, when he goes to see Ethan and he says, "Willow, you need to leave us," and then you see him it's like, whoa, what happened to Giles? Like, wow. Yeah. And of course, there's like a little subplot of Spike kind of being out on Halloween night and reveling in like all the chaos. And he has his little demons, these kids that have been turned into demons and they're like following him around. And there's just a lot of fun to be had in this episode. I think, it's like really light. It really leans into the Halloween theme. It introduces, a great character in Ethan. Sarah gets something new to do. Allison gets something new to do. We get to see these dynamics switch up and change around. And then we get the final fight between Buffy and Spike. And I love that she takes him on while still in her big costume dress. It's a great visual of Buffy just beating the crap out of Spike. And then we get a really nice, sweet little ending of Buffy and Angel, which, of course, for me as a Angel shipper, I love, just having a moment where he reassures her that, he doesn't want her to be like those women, that he's fine with her the way she is. So it's kind of a cute little affirmation at the end of like, their relationship is fine for now and everything's okay. Just such a fun episode. I do think the other Buffy episodes are great. Like Fear Itself is a really fun episode. All the Way is, I think, my least favorite.
It's solid, but not
as good as the other
episode.
But but
this
one is just good. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I love the visuals. I love Buffy's like outfit. I think she looks great. I think poor Willow is so right when she says to Buffy that the sexy outfit is just not her. But I love that she gains the confidence over the episode, by taking charge and by being in the lead. At the end of the episode, she's confident enough to walk out without the ghost without the ghost costume. I also love when Buffy's talking to Xander and she's all like, "Oh, but where do you see?" And they turn around and there's on the stairs as well. She's just like, Casper. Yeah. Well, that's a fine boo you got there. So,
it's a great episode.
It's a great episode. So that's my number 3, Halloween from season 2 of Buffy.
Yeah, there's a lot of highlights with Willow. I really love because she's obviously a ghost, so she comes through the wall of the library and scares the shit out of Giles.
To say? Yeah, you're like, what were you about to say there, Giles? Yeah, that's one of my favorite visuals.
The cards go everywhere, like
going everywhere. Oh, and I also love when Giles is like, and your outfit? Well, I'm a ghost. Yes, but the ghost of what exactly?
Yeah, and isn't there? Because he leaves the message for Giles. I love that. I love stuff like that. It's like, it's a good way to like keep things flowing and say he will be back, sort of thing. And I also like the fact that they used the army guy stuff with Xander later on. That's really good. Yeah, it's something they actually, so that's good. Yeah, good choice. It's a Simpsons Treehouse of Horror.
Nice. Very
and
nice.
I've gone with the first one. The first one they did in season 2. So this one where you've got the 3 stories and each family member sort of tells a story. So that immediately is like tapping into like a Halloween style tradition of storytelling around the fire, sort of campfire, and just having fun with it because like the characters then appear in the stories themselves, and it's an early example of what fun pop culture cine literate show The Simpsons is, because each of the stories is like riffing and pastiching. Like the first one's like pastiching like the Amityville horror, sort of making fun of certain tropes and things that are in the novel, especially of the Amityville horror. Next one is like referencing Prestige in like a Twilight Zone episode, which is really good. That's the one with the alien.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes.
Which is fantastic, and Lisa's the one that questions like their sort of motivations, and then you get a retelling of the Raven, the Edgar, which is fantastic. That's really a great idea, and Poe's synonymous with like horror and Halloween, so that's a really good choice, and it's a really fun episode, a really like great visual episode to look at, and the way they use like the storytelling devices, and it sums up one of the things the Simpsons does really well, where it's really smart about these things. It really understands the genre and the pop culture references, and it sort of works as a little fun like poke at the tropes, but at the same time it manages to like prestige them, and it manages to create something of its own sort of thing, like its own style, and it manages to be like quite sort of spooky and have fun with things, and a lot of style, a lot of fun with Lisa in the episode. She's really good in the episode. Some good sort of gags, and a nice idea for like a Halloween style episode where you've got these 3 different stories and all in the one episode. So it's good stuff. It's a fun episode.
Yeah, I love it. Treehouse of Horrors are always so much fun, and I really love this one because my favorite part is I love the Raven segment, because it's just, I love how they mix the humor in with the somber retelling of the Raven. I just love the hoist the Raven, eat my shorts, Bart. Or the this had better been good. Darkness fell and nothing more. You know what would have been better than nothing? Anything. And I love the little nevermore ravens circling around Homer's head. Nevermore, 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 nevermore. Just everything about the Raven, so good. But yeah, gotta have some Treehouse of Horror. Very, very cool, because they're such Halloween staples, you know. And I used to watch them all the time in the 90s, and they were just so much fun. So very good. So we're at the top 2 now. So my number 2 is actually a crossover. It is one that you have already mentioned. So you've already had this on your list. So a bit higher for me, but I am going with Supernatural season 4. It's the Great Pumpkin Sandwich Winchester. So you covered a lot of it. It is a great episode. It really leans into some fun, like Halloween, like horror legends. And one thing that the early seasons of Supernatural did very well, particularly season 1, is they would reference real life urban legends. So there was a Hookman episode, there was a Bloody Mary episode, things like that. And I like that this Halloween episode opens with razor blades in the candy, you know, so right off the bat we get a great reference to a Halloween legend. They also, like you said, they have the bobbing for apples, and there's a few other like little bits and pieces here and there. But what I really love about this one is that it references Samhain, and Samhain Eve is the origin of Supernatural. So the demon that they're summoning, that the witches are summoning, is actually the demon of Samhain, who is the demon or the saint or whatever of Halloween. So I actually love that this episode goes more into like the actual mythology of Halloween. And, you know, they talk about once a night Samhain would walk the earth, people would wear masks to conceal themselves, and they would offer candy. And this is stuff that I've all actually read before, because I love the backstory of Halloween and Samhain Eve. So I really love that Supernatural, because again, the early seasons were very good like this. It delved into some actual real world mythology that people can relate to. So the raising of Samhain, I thought, was fantastic. Now, as you mentioned, it does tie into the overall story of Lucifer. So in season 4, the boys find out that Lilith, which is Lucifer's right-hand demon, she's breaking the seals. The seals are there. She needs to break 66 seals in order to let Lucifer roam free. Now, the seals are all different things. They're sacrifices, or they're, you know, doing certain rituals, but one of the seals is the raising of Samhain. So that's how it links into this episode. And of course, this season, Sam is wrestling with, so Sam has demon blood in him, and because of that, he has certain powers and he can exorcise demons, but Dean doesn't want him to use these powers because they're technically evil. It's a little bit like the Willow magic metaphor. But in this episode, Sam does exorcise Samhain, and it's kind of like a step towards darkness for him. So again, you have, you know, that kind of building into the overall arc of the season, and just with a really good like Halloween theme. I do like that we get to see, we get to see the Halloween aesthetic, we get to see the decorations, we get to see some costumes. I love Dean's little thing with the astronaut kid. He thinks he's
Oh
like
yeah,
trying to
that's
get the
really
candy.
good.
And
Yeah.
then like I think his car's been keyed or something. He's like, freaking astronaut, and it's just like really good. So yeah, just a really fun episode. And like I said, I really just love how it delves into like the true mythology of Halloween and how Samhain Eve is actually the original Halloween. I just think it's a great little twist and really elevates the episode. So that's my number 2. It's The Great Pumpkin, Sam Winchester.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, expanded on a lot of what I talked about, so that's good. Good stuff. Okay, so my number 2, I've gone for something a little bit different and something I rewatched just yesterday, but it's from the one and only season of My So-Called Life. They had a Halloween episode just called Halloween
I saw you were
again.
watching that on your line.
Yeah. So you thought it could possibly come up, and yeah, it's a great episode. It's only the second time I'd watched it, but it's just a really satisfying, well-written episode that just shows what a good, mature, well-rounded show it was. So the main idea with the main characters of the episode is then they find out about a student who died at their school years ago, history about what actually happened. So Rihanna, who's sort of like the punky out there sort of girl of the group, she persuades Angela, the main character, Ricky, who's another friend, and also Brian, who's like the nerd style character. She convinces them to come with her after dark to the school to try and raise the spirit of this like dead student type
don't do
thing.
that. That's never good. That's
but
dumb.
yeah. But what's really good about this episode is then they do make it scary. They do make it quite spooky, and there's a little bit of an atmosphere, and that's in context of this show, which is a really grounded, very realistic sort of teen show. And once again, it works because it doesn't really break the characters and it doesn't really break the drama of the show. It enhances that in some ways, and probably because it's a coming of age show, it just gets across the impressionable like nature of teenagers at a certain age and how they are sort of taken in by this sort of thing, and how it feels like exciting and fresh, and how they just want to explore like different sides of themselves, like something we've talked about on this video tonight. But yeah, they do make it into quite a spooky, atmospheric episode without breaking the realistic drama of the characters. So, like, Angela will be walking down the hall and she'll get a sense of something, and she thinks, could that be a ghost? Could that be something to do with this? And it just feels like natural. It doesn't feel like a false sort of thing. And there's lots of great stuff because it's one of those shows where every character they give something interested to, like in every episode. So this is an example where you get like characters pairing off and having nice little like conversations. So you sort of get the odd couple pairing of sort of Brian and Rihanna, for example, and they're characters who barely ever have conversations, but like they're just left alone at some point in the school when they're sort of doing this whole thing, and it's sort of polar opposite because she is a bit more of the out there punky type one, quite sort of brash and loud, and he's the more nervous sort of nerdy type character. And they have a moment of bonding. And the whole plot to do with them like trying to bring out the spirit is like really well done, because what they do is it's sort of what happened to this student years ago mirrors what's going on with Angela in her life. So there's sort of like a mirror sort of type connection, and they do it really well, where it plays out, and she starts seeing things from the past with this character, and it becomes a little bit of a mystery of what exactly happened to him. And yeah, Claire Danes is just so natural, so raw, just fits that role so well. She's just she just makes all this stuff works, because in the hands of a lesser actress, it could come off as a little bit sort of cheesy or over the top, but she just sells everything so well. And she's got like glasses on, which is almost like spooky style glasses, but it's a lot of fun, and it works well, and they do other good stuff with other characters. There's some fun lines. Once again, there's a like character flavor to it because of the different outfits, and so at one point, like this character of Sharon, she's wearing a cat outfit and a cat suit, and they come to school and they're in class, and she just shoots Brian a look, and it's like has this line of "I'm a cat, deal with it" sort of thing, which is really funny. And just the voiceover narration from Angela, where the teacher even is teaching in like a Halloween style outfit, and it just gets into the mindset of a teenager, like what a strange holiday this is, how strange than even the teachers are like dressing up for class. But yeah, there's just like individual scenes where you'll get a pair of characters. So like later on, Sharon sort of comes over to the house and she starts talking to like Angela's sister Danielle, and Danielle's adorable, but there's this great thing with her in the episode where she actually chooses to dress up as Angela, her own sister. So what she does is she does like impressions of her and the sort of things she'll say. So it's almost like she's mocking her. So like someone will like mention it, like say a line to her, and she'll actually stay in character and she'll answer like Angela would. So it's really funny, but then there's some layers to it, because like secretly, although she doesn't admit it outright, she's almost doing it as like a tribute to her sister type thing. But no, there's a nice scene with her and Sharon when Sharon comes over to the house, and Sharon says, well, she's gonna go off and meet her boyfriend, but then she realizes then that Danielle's a bit lonely and doesn't have anyone to spend Halloween with, so she actually goes out with her trick-or-treating, and they have a nice sort of discussion about her and Angela. There's some fun with the parents because they're supposed to go off to a Halloween party, so there's some fun with them picking costumes. So like the mother, Bess, dresses up as Rapunzel. The father, I think, he dresses up as the pirate, and they have some fun with that. But the fun with them is that they're supposed to go to the party, but because they're dressed in these quite sexy style outfits, they sort of use it to sort of role play, and they start having sex. And every now and again, like kids will like buzz the bell, like trick-or-treaters, and they'll start giving them, like, because the mother gives them like some candy, and then they keep coming back. So in the end, the dad just gives them a whole load and says, tell the rest, we're all out of candy. And it's because they want to have sex. Talking to her friend on the phone, she actually lies about what their costumes were, and she claims that they were dressed up as the Clintons type thing, and that is such a 90s type thing.
Oh, it really is, yeah.
I think it's tapping into that era where, like, people looked up to Hillary Clinton as like an aspirational sort of woman and like role model. So it's almost like this era where the Clintons, for a certain group of people, were seen as kind of like icons or people to look up with. So really good episode, really charming, a lot of fun, and a nice sort of way to work Halloween into the show and the drama.
Oh, cool. It's a show I haven't seen yet. It's on my to-watch list. I will get around to watching it because I hear nothing but good things about My So-Called Life. Although it does have Jared Leto, so That might be a downside.
Well, he is perfectly cast because he's
Okay.
a sort of a bohemian who's self-obsessed with himself, so he is
Oh, okay. So
perfectly
he's
cast.
playing the character.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But no, I will definitely have to get around to that one at some point.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
should do it one day
yeah.
since there's only one
Only
season,
one season.
especially.
Yeah. Plus,
Yeah,
it'll be a
it's
nice
very.
90s nostalgia hit. So that
Yeah,
could be fun.
yeah,
So should we do some honorable mentions before we do our both of our top picks?
yeah. Sure. Almost had the Parks and Recreation one, Greg
No,
Puskaitis from.
I've never watched Parks and
Oh,
Rec,
you're not watching?
but
Okay,
no.
that's a fun one,
Hmm.
and it's a good sort of thing where like this kid who always pulls pranks on Halloween, and Leslie's trying to like catch him, and where it actually shows you how he did everything, sort of thing, like the whole elaborate sort of plot. So that's this US Halloween from season 2. That's a good one. Again, some fun costumes like Dwight dressing up as Darth Vader, and it's so funny him under the hood type thing, and acting all deadpan and what have you, and because the theme of the episode, which is like a good one for Halloween, is that Michael has to fire someone, and so Michael being Michael and a chicken shit, he doesn't want to face up to it. So, and he keeps, because at one point, like Jim and Pam are pulling a prank on Dwight where they're trying to set him up with a job that will take him out of the area. And so when Michael hears this and that Dwight ended up turning it down, he's like, "No, you idiot! I wouldn't have had to fire someone." And Dwight's like, "Yeah, but then you wouldn't have had me." And he's like, "Well, explain how that's a bad thing." But yeah, there's a good bit where the different people are coming into Michael's office, and obviously there's this dread hanging over, like, is it going to be me? And when Jim goes in and Dwight thinks he's going to fire Jim, like he looks over at Pam and he's in the Darth Vader and he just does that, like. This episode, which is a Halloween style one, and it's called Fairy Tales Can Come True. It's a Cliff centric episode, and the whole thing is that he's boring everyone with stories of his trip to Florida, but then it's the Halloween party, so he sees someone dressed up as Cinderella, and they get talking, and then Cliff is dressed up as Monster Leon. He's very nervous around ladies, and he actually meets someone he hits it off with, and the whole idea they have is to meet the next night in the bar, but meet as themselves, so obviously not in costume. And so you just get this drama over, because they're both like nervous people, so are they actually gonna like get the courage and meet each other? And there's
Yeah.
there's a drama around it, because at one point it looks like she's not going to show up, and then eventually she shows up and they get their happy ending. And it's just nice them doing this sort of slow dance at the end. And because Cliff is nervous, he like pauses at one point, and the two of them are just standing there in this dance sort of thing. So Sam walks over and he sort of moves them so they keep the dance going. So it's a really cute sort of like end to the episode. Addams Family Halloween episode. So
Oh wow.
from the
Classic.
original sitcoms, yeah. And that's just called Halloween with the Addams Family. And the main gag in that episode is then you've got like these burglars trying to break into the house on Halloween, and the whole gag is then they don't realize they're burglars, but they're like indulging them in all these Halloween games, and it's like the burglars sort of getting freaked out type thing. And there's some fun imagery with like pumpkins and stuff, and like Gomez trying to carve the perfect like pumpkin. And yeah, it's a fun one.
Almost put a Treehouse of Horror on my list. I ended up bumping it just because there were other episodes that I love more, but I almost had Treehouse of Horror 5, which is the one with the Shinnin, which is one of my favorite ones. I love that one. And that one also has Cafeteria of Horrors and the time traveling episode, which I absolutely love. The time traveling episode. So the one where Homer keeps using the toaster to go back in time again and again. So that one's just really fun. I particularly love the Shannon. I mean, because you don't even have to have seen The Shining to understand like the references. So I think that one's really fun. I mentioned that Pretty Little Liars has some really good Halloween episodes. So I almost put their season 2 Halloween episode on. That one is called The First Secret, and it is an entire flashback episode. So it's their last Halloween with Allison before she died. And we get some fun costumes in that one. We get some fun background. We get to see that Allison was actually being threatened by A before she died. So I think that's the first confirmation we get that A was also after Allison. And we get a really nice, and right at the end, we get to see a flashback of Allison being buried, and then we see her hand come up through the dirt. So that's our first confirmation that yes, Allison is actually alive, that she survived. And so yeah, it's just a really fun episode. And then there was a Friends episode that I almost put on the list, which is the season 8 Halloween episode, which is the one with the Halloween party. Simply because I really love the costumes in that party. Phoebe is Supergirl, Monica is Catwoman, Chandler is the Velveteen Rabbit, but it's a pink rabbit costume, so he's obviously not happy with that at all. And Joey comes as Chandler, which I absolutely love. And there's a fun gag with that. Yeah. And then Ross comes as Spudnik, so he's wearing a potato outfit, but he's got antenna, so he's like Sputnik. Yeah, so there's a whole thing. It's got a guest star, Sean Penn guest stars in this as he's dating Ursula, Phoebe's twin. So we get to see Ursula as well in this episode, which is always good fun. So yeah, so I almost put that on. And then the very last one that I almost put on, but didn't because it's not quite as Halloweeny as the others. It's the season 4 episode of Desperate Housewives. Now I Know, Don't Be Scared. Just because, again, I ended up leaving this off because it's not really a Halloween episode. It just happens to be set at Halloween, and there is a costume party. And I really like, so in season 4, the storyline is Bree is pretending to be pregnant while her daughter Danielle is actually pregnant, and then Bree's going to raise a child as her own. Danielle is home at this point, and she ends up turning up to the party dressed as her mother. So she can actually have her baby bump on display. Oh, that's right. And Andrew, Bree's gay son, ends up being bullied into being dressed up as Cher. And then there's a great scene at the end where Danielle actually goes into labor, and the baby is delivered by their new neighbor, Adam. He's played by Nathan Fillion, and he's dressed as Frankenstein. And the Scavo kids just happen to look through the window just as he pulls the baby up. So they look in, and there's like this big guy looking like Frankenstein with the baby. Yeah. And the kids are just like, ah! So yeah, so I almost put that one on the list. So those were my so yeah, they just locked out simply because these ones that are actually on the list are ones that I tend to watch, a lot, and I know them really well, and I really love them. So my number 1, this is actually really cool. This is going to create kind of a symmetry to this list because my number 1 is your number 10. My number 1 episode is the season 3 Charmed episode, All Hallowe'ens Eve. I love this episode. I mean, you covered a lot of it when you spoke about it, but it's just, I love how much it utilizes the Halloween season. And I really love the time travel aspect. So they travel back in time to deliver this baby, and you actually find out at the end of the episode that they've delivered Melinda Warren, who is the start of their line. So they actually delivered their own great grandmother, which is very cool. And I also really like how this episode, kind of similarly to the Supernatural episode, it goes more for, the more mythology-based kind of supernatural Halloween stuff. So not the commercial thing. So obviously you do have Phoebe, like we talked about, complaining at the beginning about the commercialism of Halloween and how she doesn't like the fact that witches are represented by flying hags on brooms, which is why that bit at the end is so funny when she does actually levitate, and they're like, you only have yourself to blame, Phoebe. But the interesting part is when the girls go back in time, because they technically don't exist yet, their powers don't exist.
Yeah.
But because they are witches and they're magical beings, they can learn magic. So we actually get this really cool little scene of them learning like earth magic, learning to use things that are actually around. Apples to ward off luck, rosemary for good luck, you know, a broom to light your way, tokens and trinkets to help, you know, ward off bad spirits. And I really love that this episode goes more into that sort of magic, because Charmed is very much based in supernatural magic. You know, they do brew potions occasionally, but it's mostly just, you know, zap, blow up, you know, freeze, that sort of thing. So I like that this episode has more of kind of like a folk feel to it. You know, they're back in the 1600s, they're wearing those dresses, they're using, you know, more like Wiccan things as opposed to witchcraft. And I really like that episode embraces that like fully. As you said, it's a great episode for Cole. We get to see him be a bit more sinister as he travels back, and there's a nice moment between him and Phoebe where this guy's like, if I peel this apple and you blow on it, it will show you the letter of your true love, and the letter's a C. And so of course she thinks it's Cole. And yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had in this episode. I really love the aesthetic. I really love the costumes, and like both the costumes that the girls wear at the beginning and what they end up wearing when they're back in time. I love the link that they ended up delivering the start of their line, and that they were there to see that. And like with you, I love the Daryl and Leo stuff, because I love that this is when Daryl really discovers who Leo is and what he can do, and that he can be someone to be trusted. I also think it's a really funny episode. It's got some really funny lines and some really fun bits, like when they go back in time and they're just like, oh, I hate when we travel in time. And Phoebe's like, you hate it? I was burned at a stake last time, you know, and they're all just kind of having their little bits and pieces. So yeah, it's just, I feel like this episode it feels like Halloween, you know, like you put it on and you instantly feel the Halloween spirit and the Halloween, you know, season, and just everything about the episode is just so great. So that is my number one. And like I said, I think it forms a lovely symmetry that was your number 10. And then we kind of ended up with it being my number one, All Hallows Eve. Plus, I love the title. I love the little play on All Hallows Eve. I think that's a really fun title. Yeah. So that is my number one.
Number one, and in the end, I've gone for quite a predictable choice for my number one, just keeping it simple. It is a Buffy episode, so of course I had to have a Buffy Halloween style episode. It's the sort of show that lends itself so well to Halloween style episodes, but I've not gone for the obvious one. I've not gone for Halloween. I've actually gone for Fear itself.
You're not basic like me.
No. I like Fear itself just a little bit more. It's a close run thing. Halloween is a really fun episode. Like you, I like a lot of the concepts it plays with, and the different character dynamics, and the introduction of Ethan Rain. But I like Fear itself just a little bit more. So this is the one where they go to like a Halloween party at a fraternity house, and there's, you know, this demon, the demon of Gachner, I think the name is, which is hilarious, that reveal later on. But the whole idea is that their fears are being used against them. And yeah, there's some creepy stuff in that house with the different characters and the fears. And it also plays nicely into the theme of the season of season 4, which is the theme of when sometimes when you go off to college, you do lose touch a bit with friends, or you just don't quite feel as close as you were, you know, in high school. So that episode where they're literally separated in the house because of what's going on, that connects to the main theme of the season very nicely. I think I like it a little bit more than Halloween, just because it is a bit more scary. It's a bit more atmospheric, and it's got a fun concept as well. You've got some great character moments. There's some really funny jokes. I like, actually, probably 2 of my favourite jokes maybe of the whole show. So the joke at the start of the episode, you know, where's with Xander with like Phantasm and Fantasia, where they get the movies muddled up at the video store. And that's such
terrifying Fantasia.
Such a particular joke, because of course when you used to rent videos, at least in the UK, that they didn't have the picture on the front. Not for the rentals, it just had so if you rented it from Blockbuster, it just had the Blockbuster logo
Oh, okay.
I think it might say the title of the film on like a little card sort of thing. So actually, you can imagine that mistake maybe happening, especially when the titles are so close. And but that's just a hilarious gag, and like Oz's line is really. It's something about like hippos. It doesn't seem quite as scary. So that's really
up to everything we've seen, but hippos and tutus just don't seem alarming.
Yeah, that's an example of the sort of humour Buffy does so well. And then obviously the payoff with the demons at the end, the actual
I love it.
gag.
Yeah. The line under the photo, I should have transcribed it. Why? What does it say? Actual size.
And it's just a passing sort of line, and it's the way they actually end the episode. That's such a Buffy thing to do, because like Buffy just shrugs. It's like, oh well, never mind. So it worked out, and just this subversion that you're expecting it to be this menacing big demon, and it's given this big build up where it's coming out through the floor, and it's just this time. And I just love the way it cuts around all their faces. Now, I could be wrong, like the visual looks similar, but the visual of that with them all looking down at it reminds me a bit of a similar scene in that cheesy 80s movie. It's like, what's it called? You're
going to have to be more specific.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But it's the one at the bowling alley with like the demons. It's like, damn it, someone. It's like it's got a really long title. It's like it's got like slime ball at the Bowlerama or something.
Awesome.
It's
well,
like,
I haven't seen it, but it sounds like I need to. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's quite a fun movie, but just the image is similar to an image out of that film, so it wouldn't surprise me if, like, they might have been influenced.
Everything about Gaknar is awesome.
So funny.
Don't want to see a demon. Why, can he hurt me? No, it's just tacky.
And you obviously start off with a pumpkin. That's the first shot of the episode. Buffy looking into the pumpkin, which is really good. And some great costumes once again. Obviously, Buffy as Little Red Riding Hood, which is fitting. That's a great costume. I like Willow dressed up as Joan of Arc.
Oz's costume.
Yeah.
So good. Plus, she had that close personal relationship with God. And you are God. Love it.
And I think there's the thing with Xander, isn't he, where he's meant to be dressed up as James Bond, and one of them makes the quip about. That's
he's like, in case we get turned into our costumes, the guy, I'll be cool James Bond guy. Yeah, either that or just be cool head waiter guy. Either way.
So that's a good callback.
And Anya in her bunny outfit.
Yes. I was gonna.
Yes.
Because I think this is a big honor episode. It's a big jump forward for her as a character to the character we would become, sort of know and love, because first of all it introduces the whole bunnies thing, which is hilarious considering all the stuff she's seen over her stint.
Hey, have you seen Monty Python? Bunnies, man.
Yeah, she's scared of bunnies. That's the whole thing. So she dresses up as that. But we also see, really, for the first time, that she does care for Xander, like her concern. That it's because it's this funny thing. Never mind about the other Xanders in there, but it shows she is concerned. And of course, Giles with the kick-ass chainsaw moment. That is so iconic. They put it in the credits because why wouldn't they? And it's like, is there a door? And it doesn't matter because there is a door. Yeah, there's a door now because I'm going to use the chainsaw.
Also, I love when they're at the end and like they go running towards the door and there's just Giles. Giles? It's Giles with a chainsaw. No, I was thinking also, because we get some great Giles moments, Giles and his sombrero. Just
and he references, it's alive and stuff. Happy Halloween when she answers
Buffy's look of horror. Oh my god. It's a sombrero. Yeah, and it's on your head.
Yeah.
While I'm talking to you. And yes, I think that's a great precursor to the scene in season 5 when he's wearing the wizard hat. It has a similar energy. Just Buffy being horrified by Giles in these hats.
Yeah,
Yes,
there's
no.
some good stuff in season 4 with Giles and his midlife sort of crisis,
Yes,
and how much it
definitely.
freaks Buffy out. So,
Yeah. No, great choice. Fear itself is. It's a great episode. I think I just went for Halloween because I just love that early, like the newness of like
mhm.
season 2 and the mix up of like all the costumes. But Fear itself, I definitely agree, has got some creepier moments. There are those moments of chaos in the party where you see that girl on the couch and there's blood dripping out of her mouth, and then she suddenly smiles at the camera, and it's like, no.
Yeah.
The tarantula on Willow, not cool. And I
Mhm.
find Oz's freak out particularly sad and kind of
Yeah.
intense because, he starts to turn into the wolf and he's so terrified of the wolf ever coming out. So that again, that was a nice lead up to like where Oz's character does end up going before his arc is cut short. So no, that's a great, because I was wondering, I'm like, we've gotten through 9 episodes. Keith has got to have some Buffy on here somewhere, right? But I
Yeah.
didn't know which episode you were going to go with. So that was a nice surprise. Very, very cool. So we had some crossover. I thought we would
Yeah,
have. I
couple.
thought we'd both have Trick or Treat. The Stranger Things
Stranger
one.
Things.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I thought that we'd both have a Buffy episode. I just wasn't sure which Buffy episode you'd have. So that was
Yeah.
cool. But the Charmed one was a nice surprise. I'm happy you had that on your list.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, I figured probably you would have that one. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
massive Charmed fan. So,
Very
that's
nice.
good stuff. Let us know what you think of our picks. Also, come up with your own lists in the comments below. So, your own top 10 or just some of your favourites. If you want to recommend an episode of TV with a Halloween theme, then feel free to do so. So, like, subscribe, share us out on social media. And this is part of our month-long sort of celebration of Halloween and horror, where we're doing a lot of different reviews of horror movies. I'm also going to be doing some horror TV reviews. Also, I'm doing a horror quiz, which I think that's a live stream, so I think that's probably already taken place by the time this video goes out. So just lots of stuff throughout the month, and we hope you're having a good spooky season. But Rachel, if you want to promote your channel before we go.
Guys, you can follow me, Rachel Macdonald Video Essays, covering TV shows and movies. My Tumblr and my Twitter are both linked there. And I did also recently join Instagram. There is nothing really on it yet, but I will put a link eventually on my YouTube. So come and follow me everywhere. And Keith usually is nice enough to put a link in the description so you guys can find me easily.
Okay, thanks guys, and we'll of course return with another list video again soon. So take care and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.